Howdy. This is Mission Texas,
a political podcast about winning Texas by 2032, or else we may lose the White House for a generation.
I'm one of your hosts, Alex Clark.
And I am Kate Rumsey.
Other podcasts may focus on the day-to-day or the next election, but we are keeping the eyes of Texas on the bigger prize. What happens after the next census?
Welcome to the podcast. Two people who host their own podcast. The interviewers are now the interviewees from Progress, Texas. Welcome to the podcast, Chris and Kathleen. We're so thankful you're here, especially around the holiday season. All right, I got to ask. So now you're on our podcast. How does it feel to be interviewed?
It's great. We are all in this together, and we went back on Kendall's podcast way back when Chair Kendall Scudder was the host of Pod Bless Texas. So it's good to be back on somebody else's feed. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, maybe we can play a Pod Bless Texas game for old time's sake.
Sure. I really enjoy talking to other podcasters because we figure out things that we're doing wrong that we can do better, and it's always an interesting and fun learning experience. Just with people doing pod of any type, much less political. It's even more so though with that.
All right, so tell us a little bit about Progress Texas. It's not just a podcast, is it?
No, it's not. Progress Texas is 15 years old. We are old enough to have our learner's permit. We became 15 years old this year. Progress Texas was started 15 years ago by folks who wanted to push back daily on the disinformation that's well paid for here in Texas. Unfortunately, there's a lot of really good journalism that's behind paywalls, but the lies are free. So Progress Texas is in the digital space with website and social media channels, and now with a globally top-rated podcast. We have multiple podcast shows, and we are the permanent home for progressive media here in Texas. Our tagline is about campaigns coming and going. A lot of people can understand campaigns. You get really excited about a race or a specific statewide race or something happening with a county commissioner or county judge, but those campaigns tend to end on a Tuesday in November, right? So where do all those people go? Where does the infrastructure go? It all can go away if that person doesn't run again. So we want to be a voice for what's truly happening in Texas and why, and then what people can do about it.
Yeah, and honestly, that was that piece of it. The campaigns come and go was a part of our own origin story. We wanted to make sure that we were talking about the issues that were coming down the pike, coming to 2030 and beyond, not just, hey, what's going on right now? Did you see what Trump just said? We want to make sure that before the campaign, after the campaign, for the next campaign, right? We're keeping the eyes of Texas on the bigger prize.
Absolutely. The founders, one of whom was former Austin Mayor Steve Adler. I've talked to him a little bit about when it first fired up back in the day, and that was very much like Kathleen said about having some sort of a well-crafted progressive answer to a lot of the disinformation that was coming from conservative spheres, and that was all the way Rush Limbaugh and Alex Jones and people on the radio and people with enormous, gigantic mainstream reach. And we're still far outpaced in those areas, by the conservative side because so much money and time and frankly, a lot of brains. I mean, those people, that's not built out of just naturally. That's built through a lot of investment and a lot of people with a lot of strategy involved to build this, juggernaut of bad information that's designed to persuade people to vote a certain way. So where that's the initial idea from what I've been told was to be able to play defense against that to a certain degree. But hopefully I'd love to see it. And I think it's coming where we can kind of go on offense a little bit because people have started to pay attention more so.
I guess you guys have been with Progress Texas, or it's been in existence for 15 years, which makes me feel good. I mean, we just started, right? But what were you doing before that? How did you get into this gig?
Well, I've been a part of Progress Texas for years. Way back when the OG staff, one of them as a deputy director told me that I was the longest small dollar donor, and it was truly like $5 a month because I have a history of growing up in the church, and we tithe on Sundays, but also how about better public policy outcomes so churches aren't raising money to help fix the problems? So I became a board member under the direction of Ed Espinoza years ago. And then when Ed wanted to leave the nonprofit world for the for-profit world, make a little money, perhaps buy some new Adidas. Hey, Ed, if you're listening, then I thought I would love to do this because I had a broadcast news background and then went on to work for some candidates and nonprofits. And now instead of doing a comm shop like at a county party or doing some comms here and there, this is just a comm shop. It's a statewide comm shop that I have the pleasure of leading communications professionals across the state.
I come from a radio background, so similarly have a toehold from back in the day in traditional media, similar to Kathleen. When Donald Trump was first elected in 2016, I decided that I wanted to do whatever I could to use my skills as both a broadcaster and also as a musician. I played in rock bands since I was a teenager, so I knew how to run PA systems. So I started providing PA amplification and web streaming to my local clubs, which is something I still occasionally do on evenings and weekends. And joined a podcast called Left in Texas back in the day with a couple of dudes who were way more inclined and experienced in politics than I was. I was really just an interested, concerned citizen at that point. JD Gins and Joe Deshotel were the two guys that I joined on that. Later on, we added Kerry Collier Brown, who was one of the founders of Texas Blue Action. That thing basically died when the pandemic came along because we could no longer gather and drink beer to record our podcast as we had gotten used to doing. We could never get used to this whole remote thing. But that was how I met Ed and started doing podcast production for Progress Texas. About the point when Ed handed things off to Kathleen, we really leaned into the broadcast or the podcasting arena and also the digital video arena. And that's kind of where those have been our growth lanes for the last couple of years now.
I was going to ask Chris to say a little bit more about the Daily Dispatch. The Daily Dispatch is something that we are so proud of, and it's a Monday through Friday daily, which it's hard to do a weekly podcast. Y'all tell me if it's hard around your other work. And Chris came to me and said, I really think we can do a daily. And I said, that's a huge commitment. We're averaging 1, sometimes 2 pods a week with the Progress Texas Happy Hour. I would love to do that though, because there are some daily podcasts that are too long for me. Like I have 3 kids, I work full time, I have to run errands. I'm the executive director of my home and my office. I don't have 30 minutes for a morning podcast. I need something in don't even give me 15 minutes. I want 10 minutes or less. 7 would be ideal. Go to the post office, walk the dog, wash the dishes. Chris, would you say a little bit about Daily Dispatch and what it's led to?
Yeah, that kind of came from also my radio background, occasionally filling in. People who are listening here in Austin anyway will remember the Sammy and Bob morning show on KVET radio. I was working there at the time and would occasionally fill in for their news director, whose job basically it was to once an hour pop in there and talk for about 5 or 10 minutes about the current news. And so I, developed a kind of a system for that and a role for that. Did a little podcast about Austin during the pandemic. The Austin Daily Drop was what that was called. And so, and refined those skills into the podcast realm. And then we basically were able to modify, just the systems I had in place for that to plug in as the Daily Dispatch, but with more of a statewide and political sort of focus, which is what that is now. It's basically, I wake up at 5:30 in the morning and doom scroll so you don't have to, and develop a 7 to 10 minute role on what's happening right now. Of course, doing this daily, it turns into a narrative. It turns into an ongoing narrative. And there are certain, areas, that we'll all be familiar with as people who follow politics, different people and different issues. And, especially during the legislature, clearly covering that, during elections, clearing up, covering all of that stuff, that turned into kind of a daily update. And so I like to think of it, perhaps vicariously, it's just long enough to listen to in the shower. It's about one shower's length. And so I love the idea of people listening to me as they shower. And so that's part of it for me behind the curtain.
For us fellas, we can get a shower done in that much time, right?
Sure.
I was going to say earlier, when you mentioned your experience in the rock band, it made me think of probably the most fun job I ever had was in high school. I was the manager of a hardcore metal band called In Times of Trial.
I too am from the metal world. My thing was metal as well.
Yeah. Trial? Okay, I'll write that down.
If you want, later I'll send you the music video I helped fundraise for.
Please do.
Yeah, the singer of that band is actually like a signed recording artist with a band called Kubla Khan Texas TX.
Okay, cool.
And they travel internationally and have record deals and the whole thing. Yeah, I still keep in touch with those guys.
My metal thing was a band. We were actually out of Lubbock was where we started our band. We moved it to Austin in '93. It was called Human, which is far too simplistic a name to have really ever taken off. And we were doing kind of like a unnecessarily complicated math metal is what we decided to call it. And we did pretty well. We went for about I guess I was in that band from 1999 until 2003. No. Longer than that, 2013. Anyway, it went really well. We moved it to Austin. We played, I guess our coolest gig was we opened for Clutch at Liberty Lunch one time.
My guys were in high school and they were in like the Sherman, Denison, Texoma, Sadler, South Maid type area. And for that area, rural North Texas, they were huge, but
very cool. Very cool. Metal is a small world,
That's right. But the skills are not as applicable to the podcasting world, I'll tell you. I'm hoping I can use the kind of ingenuity to fundraise and be able to pay our editor going into the new year. But other than that.
Shout out to Wanese.
Yeah.
Well, I had a question hearing y'all. I mean, it sounds like, I'm guessing over 15 years, the way in which you're messaging, maybe the content is not changing, but the way you do. And I heard you talk about getting into video. Like, can you speak a little bit more about that? Like, where has it been? Where is it going? And I guess I asked this in the context of, like, I heard an interview with some podcasters with The Hollywood Reporter and Ben Shapiro and Jon Favreau, and a bunch of people were on it. And Ben Shapiro was making the case that traditionally he believes Republicans have been better at embracing things over time, historically, with new media. And so I'm wondering, like, what are your thoughts, especially given your experience here on Progress Texas?
Yeah, Kate, we have changed the way that we do our work. When I was on the board, the staff would spend a lot of time sending out a press release, chasing producers, reporters, by phone, saying, "Did you get our release? Can you come to our presser? Can you come to our event on the Capitol steps? This is really important. We need you there." So we still do that. We still send the press releases. We still chase producers and reporters. But in today's day and age, if our small staff is working really hard to get a story in tomorrow's newspaper, by tomorrow, that story is old news, right? So what we have done is start our mornings with Chris's Daily Dispatch. That's the news that broke overnight. It's the news that is still making headlines. The evening before, it's stories that we think are not being reported. And let me give you an example of one of them. That was a huge story that was so underreported this year that we leaned heavily on to great success, I think. But so we have the podcast, and then our staff members record direct to camera videos that go out on Blue Sky, Instagram, Twitter, all the places. And then those are shared widely, which is wonderful. But also we can see on the analytics that for a hugely performing one video on one platform, maybe of all the people who saw it, it's about 20 or 30% of our own followers, meaning so many more people who are new to us, who haven't taken the time to go back to our profile and read our bio and hit subscribe, that they're getting the news that we think is important to them. And that's really working for us. Our digital numbers have exploded this year. We have more than 15 million views online on just our digital platform. Like, we can take an in-person rally of a really good sized rally that's 2,000 people, but share that with 800,000 on one platform alone. That's TikTok online. And the reason that that's so important is because we're fighting for people's attention. It's hard to break through, but the way that we're doing it, that's concise and easy to understand, but also easy to share, is really paying off. And I think that one of those underreported stories is the push for some zombie legislation in the first regular session. And that means it comes up session after session and Democrats kill it. It comes back and it comes back. And I do as many in-person club talks as I can and community events as I can. And a lady came up to me afterwards and said, okay, but I'm a subscriber to the news. I pay for the Dallas Morning News subscription, and I do watch my evening news. So I'm not one of the people that you're talking about that is kind of tuned out. And why have I not heard about the use it or lose it attempt at voter purge of 4 million qualified Texans? But I do know that there was a push to rename the New York strip steak the Texas strip steak. And I heard about that on the evening news, and I heard about that in the Dallas Morning News, and I'm a subscriber and I pay for that news. Well, you're subscribing to corporate media that is beholden to the shareholders, but also some of the folks who are their paid advertisers. And we're not. We're a progressive media outlet that really thinks it's important to deliver honest, accurate, timely news and some of the stories that you may have been missing. So we do things differently than when I started, but we keep those relationships with the legacy media. Like the day that Jasmine Crockett announces that she's going to jump into the Senate race, I get a request from the Dallas Morning News, do you want to weigh in here? Some people are getting their feelings hurt. What do you have to say? Two very powerful progressives are going to go head to head. Give us your take. And we talked to the staff about it briefly and sent back an answer that we think it's a good thing that two of the most effective communicators in the state party, who are talking to different people, are going to bring a lot of attention to the primary and therefore a lot of attention to the general. It's going to take so many more people to know that there's an election happening, and that's working people, that's young people, and that's the millions of people that stayed home in 2024. So we're doing the traditional media, we're doing the new media of digital, and we're in the podcast space. And we're doing as much as we can with our limited staff and our limited budget as we can.
I think that there's a really powerful analogy there between what you're talking about, where 20% maybe of the views that you're getting are from your actual followers, and the Democratic primary. And what I mean by that is most Democratic voters who show up in November and vote for a Democratic candidate in November don't think of themselves first and foremost as like die-in-the-wool Democrats, card-carrying members wearing the blue jersey with the D on the back, right? If you are one of those people, you vote in the primary. You show up to the primary. And we just know objectively that in a midterm, that's like maybe 5% of the state voting population. And in a general and like a presidential, maybe it's 10. Like, honestly, we are kind of not that big of a group. You, me, Chris, Kate, right? Like, we are kind of objectively smaller in number, but whenever the 20% of the followers can do the sharing, we can get the message out to the people who are going to show up in the general election.
Right. the people who have jobs and hobbies that have nothing to do with politics.
Right.
The key to all that is to make it interesting, and that goes back to something that Kate said a second ago about the idea that conservatives or Republicans are somehow better at this than we are. I would say that it's all tied into the fact that the Republican Party and conservatives tend to be a lot more kind of monochromatic in terms of who they are and what they're after. They're kind of more in lockstep with each other culturally and economically and whatever else. There are some lanes there, but they kind of have a nice little system going on there. And so over here on our side, on the progressive side, we're trying to do everything good for everybody. We have the old big tent, as it were. And I think that our folks definitely, are more interested in facts and science and what it really is. We don't think of ourselves, as was said, we don't think of ourselves so much as some kind of a club or a cult or whatever you want to say. I would say that many of us have started to think of ourselves as a movement, but we're not necessarily in lockstep with each other just because out of some form of loyalty or whatever it might be. We're all kind of after what's best for the country, what's real with science, what's real with freedom and all these other things. And so we're at a bit of a disadvantage in terms of not only having more people that we have to try to accommodate to get the ship going in one particular direction, as opposed to the other side, which is much more in lockstep. But I think that dedication to truth and that dedication to accuracy is much more is much harder to meet. It's a higher standard on our side than it is on the other side. And this makes me think of, if we're going back to Rush Limbaugh, I would go back to, there was a guy named Art Bell who was on AM radio back in the day, and his show might still be around. He was UFOs and alien abductions and paranormal and all this other stuff. Very, very successful guy who had a show on all over the country on AM radio. It's not a super big leap from that to what Alex Jones is known for doing.
Yeah, he walked so Alex Jones could run.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's the difference is, we could step out there and do a bunch of conspiratorial stuff. I don't guess we can cuss on this show, can we?
Go for it. Well, let's put an explicit label.
well, bullshit is the word that I would trot out there, and that's I think that's a pretty accurate statement. We're Progress Texas is a bullshit free zone. We're going for accuracy. We are crafting a narrative, but our narrative is that science works and that freedom works and that fairness works and equity works and diversity works and all the things that we believe in. We're not trying to, we're actually, if we're doing anything in the information versus disinformation space, we're trying to squish disinformation. And that frequently is not as, titillating or, sensational as creating the disinformation itself. So there's a basic difference between the two audiences that makes our lift harder, because we're trying to stick to what's real. Whereas the other side can say whatever they want, and if it fires up their base, it works for them. There's an ethical difference between the two sides.
What you're saying, though, I feel like it goes to the adage, maybe you've heard, that Democrats want to win an argument, Republicans want to win an election.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And so, and that's a real thing. And so the way we've tried to kind of scale against that idea is to make our stuff interesting and make our stuff relevant and make our stuff, we want to make sure that people understand how Republican policies are hurting them personally. And keep that, again, grounded in fact, and also, put it through the lens of there's a better alternative. We can do things differently. We can do things much better for many more of us. But the people who are in control, have managed to convince too many people in general that what they want to do is okay based on, playing on their hatreds and playing on their biases and playing on their religion and playing on their economic biases and whatever else it might be. So it's difficult. We're in a tough spot, but I think our growth shows that there's definitely an audience there, and I think we're onto a good thing.
Well, on that though, do you think that the answer to breakthrough is not just growth in Progress Texas, but also more influencers? And I know that that's self-serving, since we are, I guess you could say we're media now on our podcast, but would you encourage more people to take to TikTok or other forms of communication? And what kind of advice would you give them to start out? Because it can be frustrating.
I think absolutely the more voices, the better. Coming from a broadcast background, I have in mind, are you good at it? Are you, can you get a message across? Can you come across decent in video? Can you put your thoughts together in a cogent and brief way that resonates? Not everybody can do that. There are going to be many people who will try to do it, and I think the try is, I'm all about the try for sure. For anybody who wants to try to become a messenger for what they believe in, I would say for sure. But there are going to be some that are going to break through and are going to have some lasting power. There are definitely plenty of influencers in the political space that I'm occasionally not super in lockstep with what they're saying necessarily to their hundreds of thousands of followers. And so
I was actually just about to ask you that, Chris, because I feel like there are some where I'll see them and I see their huge platform and all the people following them. I'm like, I wish they weren't speaking for the Democratic Party right now.
Yeah, well, there's chaos for sure. Absolutely, there's chaos, and that's another part of all of this. It's a chaotic landscape in general. To answer your question, I think the more voices, the better. I also think the more better the voices, the better. That if we can get people out there who can actually do a good job with this, I'm all about it. And we're looking to expand in some other ways that we may come up with too. But we've developed the different people who have come to work for Progress Texas, both currently and past, were not influencer type people. They were mainly either policy people or they were digital people or whatever. And so we've been really quite lucky to have a pretty solid bunch of people who can do what we're talking about, who can get on a camera and get an idea across quickly and, in a way that's relevant, in a way that resonates. So this is not something that, you don't have to have years in radio or years in TV like we do in order to do this. This is something that if you've got the will and you've got the brains, then do it.
Well, that's reassuring because Kate and I don't know how to be influencers.
Yes, you can. Yes, you do.
Tell us your ways.
Lawyers and to talk about things from our perspective.
Yeah.
Well, I think the legal field is, that's rich with perspective and with expertise. That's something that's needed. The trick becomes, don't make it boring. The trick becomes, make it, don't be dry about it. And that's difficult. It's that if you think about that, being in kind of a academic sort of professional space, and then being over here in this entertainment space, there's some gray area between, and that's kind of what we shoot for. We're looking to be solid with our information, solid with our integrity with policy and things like that, but also be interesting and be entertaining, at least to a certain degree, to where just don't be boring. And I think that's a big problem also. That's kind of endemic to our side is, trying to do the college professor routine. Most people just don't want to see that.
So we have had young folks who have started with us, who started as interns and have gone on, to become communications directors for sitting members of Congress. And our digital associate, Haley, right now is being stopped on her college campus frequently and saying, I know you, I see you in the videos. And it's practice, just like if you're picking up piano or some other hobby or task that you really like that you want to improve at. But I think it's absolutely better, Kate, that more people are communicating what they think about what's happening in our country and the literal crisis that our state and our country are in. Because back in the day, we didn't all have like small communications devices in our purses or pockets. And the people who are in your phone contacts, either if you're on social media or on your text, care about you and care about what you have to say. So whether you're sharing this podcast or you're sharing Progress Texas content or you're sharing a post from a candidate that you like, that is a way to communicate your values with the people in your universe. Republicans, I don't think, are better at messaging. I think they're better at investing in messaging, which is totally different. Fox News and far-right media have been around for 40 years. And look at how it's paid off in election after election after election. They've nationalized like a county judge race or a state house race. So a Democratic candidate is going to have to answer about some national issue as they don't represent somebody in Austin or Dallas or Grapevine, Texas. So
yeah, I think they're better at investing, and I think they're less shy about sharing. I've tried to make this point. Like, I think Republicans are naturally better evangelicals, right? They're better at spreading their word. Democrats need to get a lot more comfortable with being loud and proud and sharing our word. And shout out to Haley. She is excellent. We need to recruit our own army of Haleys for Mission, Texas. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, an army of Haleys would be absolutely great for sure.
Yeah, shout out to your TikTok and Instagram and your video content. So I just want to say people should be following that. If you have not already, you've probably seen one if you've been doing your For You page on TikTok, because I know it comes up on mine.
Kate, do you think we could do, since Chris says we got to be interesting, I think
oh no,
tease this at the beginning of the episode. Maybe we should play Obsessed.
Oh, I don't even know what that is.
What is the one thing in the news, the media, the entertainment that you're completely obsessed with? That's not my best Kendall impression. I could try again, but.
Oh, Kendall is when he gets done doing what he's doing with the Democratic Party, he's total game show host material. I mean, I think Kendall would be a terrific TV host on the game show.
With the stars, not Dancing with the Stars, of course.
Exactly.
Every episode would start with, "Hi, how are you?"
Exactly. So Kate, what are you obsessed with right now?
Well, it's the holidays. Is this supposed to be political or non-political?
Anything.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with, well, I did Christmas markets last year, and this is the holiday season right now. And so I'm about to host a thing for my family, and it's sort of Christmas market themed. So I'm a little obsessed with that theme at the moment, which is maybe weird. I don't know, but I'm really excited for it. And I'm really excited for the holidays because I love Christmas and also Christmas movies.
Yeah.
Some ladies on this who are listening might appreciate. How are y'all?
Kathleen, you're next. What are you obsessed with?
Oh, I was sharing with my staff that we were singing Christmas carols, or I was singing Christmas carols in our car last night, and I was invited to stop, and I invited the children to get out and walk. I really enjoy the holidays. I love Christmas time. I love trying to get offline a little bit and just spend time with my family and try to get some peace back and some community back, and parties in the neighborhood and the lights in the neighborhood. It's really special to me, so that's something that I've really enjoyed this week.
I'll go next. I'm obsessed with A Muppet Christmas Carol. It is just completely held up over the years. Best Christmas movie.
Have you shown your kids that? Josh and I were just talking. Is Becca old enough to see that? Would she get it?
So it's funny you say that. Yeah, I watched it with Hattie, my 3.5-year-old, and there's a moment where they're about to introduce the ghost of Christmas Future. The scariest of the ghosts. Yeah. And Gonzo, who is Charles Dickens, is talking to Rizzo the rat, and he's like, "Oh, this is kind of scary. Is this okay for kids?" And he's like, "It's culture. It's fine." Okay.
I love it. I didn't realize Future was the scariest of the ghosts. I guess I'm not familiar enough with the Christmas Carol.
Well, so you got like the little kid ghost who's the ghost of Christmas past, who takes him back to his childhood, and the ghost of Christmas present is this jolly Santa type figure. And then the ghost of Christmas future is basically the Grim Reaper. He's like representing death. Yeah.
The cloak and all. I remember that now. So it just so happens, and this is a clean sweep, my obsession also has to do with Christmas, but I kind of went into a little bit of a deep nerdy dive about the political implications of the Nativity, which has to do with the fact that Joseph and Mary were forced by the Roman Empire, which was not their local government. It was a superpower that had taken over the area where they lived. They were forced to take an expensive and difficult journey while Mary was very advanced pregnant in order to be counted for a census, which itself was about taxation and about military conscription. So it wasn't anything that was going to help anybody. The idea that they ended up having to crash in a stable speaks to the idea that they were of an economic sort that had no means. It wasn't that there wasn't any room at the inn; it was that they couldn't afford a room at the inn. And so there are a lot of different things about the Christmas story. And of course, as we're talking lefty politics here, we're in a moment where we're reminded that you have to say Merry Christmas. Don't say Happy Holidays, say Merry Christmas. And there's this, the other side has politicized Christmas to a certain degree and the holiday in general. It's interesting to see that if you really dive into it.
Because you need to be aggrieved at the holidays.
Yeah. They're just committed to taking offense for anything, right? They want to call liberals snowflakes, but geez, oh, Pete.
Yeah. There's plenty of, historical and political nerdiness to be found in the Nativity if you look for it.
There are some people who get upset if you refer to Christmas as Xmas, setting aside that the X is Chi and stands for Christ.
Oh, this I never knew.
And Happy Holidays is Happy Holy Days, if you think about it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So give us a break, please.
Well, we have a few minutes till we end, but we give all of our guests the last word because this is a podcast about flipping Texas. So we ultimately, I think, if I'm hearing y'all, part of the solution is obviously in new media and how we communicate, while we communicate, breaking through. But I'm wondering both of y'all's thoughts before we leave on what it is that we need to do. What have you heard, especially from your guests, from what you're seeing, that what we need to be doing here in Texas to really flip it?
I think new media, of course, we work in that space, so clearly we believe in it. But I would say there's a lot of value in the old school, which is just talking to your neighbors. And something that Alex briefly alluded to back there was don't be shy about sharing what you think, especially at this time. I mean, a lot of us consider us to be in what could possibly amount to an existential crisis for our democracy. This is the wrong time, the absolute wrong time to be quiet. So I would encourage anybody of progressive proclivities to be loud and proud, not only on your Facebook or your Twitter or whatever, but in your neighborhood and, hell, at the grocery store, at the bar or whatever. The idea that you're not supposed to talk about politics or religion, I think, has done huge damage. Religion is something to the side that is not really my bag too much, but politics, I think, is something that, we have stolen and use all the time a line from Congresswoman Julie Johnson, which is, if you don't do politics, politics will do you. And so we are all involved in politics, whether we like it or not. And the idea that we would not want to talk about it, or we would take offense to someone else wanting to talk about it, is extremely it's a shame, because we should all be engaged in what's right around where we live and the conditions in which we live, and our economic conditions and those of our kids and our families should be of utmost importance to all of us. And too many of us have been taught that it's a faux pas to bring those things up. So commit faux pas is what I would say.
Chris, I think that quote is it's an adaptation of a Barbara Jordan quote, which is that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
Both are good. Kathleen, what's your last word?
I'm doing +1 whenever I can. I'm talking to my neighbors about elections. I'm talking to folks who helped me at the grocery store or at the bookstore about raising the minimum wage. I'm talking about healthcare policy wherever I can. And I have for years carried voter registration cards in my purse and in my car, because we need so many more people to participate. And I truly think that Texas is a voter suppressed state. I don't think it's a red state or a less of a non-voting state. It's a voter suppressed state. Ross Ramsey, who formerly worked at the Texas Tribune, talked about how our voter registration system is state of the art circa 1980.
Yeah.
You go and get a piece of paper, you go and find a pen, you write out your name and guess, okay, you're going to put on your social security, you're going to put on your driver's license, you're going to put it in the mail. It's going to be delivered via mail to somebody at your county government, whether it's
going to be shredded when it gets there, by the way. It's going to be all shredded up.
Somebody has to read your chicken scratch and guess what you said, versus you going online. You can register for your fishing license online. We can do so many things online in 2025, but we can't register to vote online because that's too much democracy. So it is so difficult. So I think some people just pass it up. But also, we have so many people who are registered to vote who stayed home last year. And we know from the news stories after the 2024 election that top searches were, did Joe Biden drop out of the election?
Wow.
What is a tariff?
Right.
Can I change my vote?
Yeah.
So people are not paying attention either because they've tuned out for whatever reason, like Chris is saying, and people don't talk about politics, or they don't know how it affects their daily lives. I went to a rally, a reproductive rights rally, and I heard two young men speaking about Roe v. Wade the day after the decision came down. And the one gentleman was talking to the other young man. He's saying, no, it's the Supreme Court. Well, when do we vote again for the Supreme Court again? You don't vote for the Supreme Court, dummy. It's appointed by the president. Well, when do we vote for president again? So I think a lot of people just don't know how the system works. It's by design. It's hard to vote. So whenever you can strike up a conversation with a smile to somebody out in the world, I think it can only benefit us. And what's the harm to try?
Well, thank you both. Where can we support you and follow you on the internet, both of you personally and also with Progress Texas?
ProgressTexas.org is our primary website. The most recent podcast that we've published, which is we constantly publish, we publish between 7 and 9 times a week, is posted there. Find us on all the different podcast platforms, from Apple to Spotify to Podbean to iHeart to wherever else they are. We're everywhere. Find us and follow us. And one thing I'd say about the Daily Dispatch, our short little morning thing that we do, if you don't happen to listen to it every day, which you should, it posts by about 8:30 every morning. You can always cycle back through about 2 or 3 of those things and spend 30 minutes instead of 10 minutes, and you're very well caught up on what's happening around you in a very complete, comprehensive sort of way. We haven't even mentioned yet, we're on the radio. Speaking of all this mainstream, old school legacy media that we're poo-pooing here. We joined the lineup for KPFT Radio, a community radio station in Houston. Obviously the biggest and most diverse city in Texas. Notably, and I didn't know this until we kind of had this agreement going with them, KPFT has the distinction of being the only radio station in the United States to have been bombed off the air twice. And it was done in the 1970s, the early 1970s, by the Ku Klux Klan. So this is a station that has been making waves in Houston for decades and decades.
That's right.
So we are super, super proud to be part of what they do. If you're in Houston, you can hear us on their HD2 channel, which starts at 11 a.m. on Sundays. And that what we're sending them is our In Progress Roundtable show that we do every Friday.
Amazing. Well, Kathleen.
Yeah, if you're on any social media platform, look for Progress Texas. I'm Kathleen Thompson on social media. And we would love for you to invest in honest Texas-made nonprofit progressive media. And those $5 and $10 donations really do add up. We have a lot of folks who give $5 a month, for that less than a latte, right? Monthly, it really does add up, and it pays for us to go in person to live events. It pays for us to go to the Capitol. It pays for us to have great content, peerless content on the radio. So if that's something that you'd be able to afford, please chip in. We'd love to have your support.
Alex and Kate actually, that's what I was going to say. Sorry to interrupt you, Kate. Alex and Kate both pitched in for our recent holiday parties. And I want to say to the two of you guys and to everybody listening, we love doing live stuff. We love doing live podcast stuff or happy hour gatherings or whatever it happens to be. We always try to make those things a lot of fun. And so when you hear about us doing something live, please do get involved, because we'd love to meet everyone, including you guys in person. And we have a great time. We're very well established with live events in Dallas and Austin. We've gotten started with some stuff in Houston. We had a live podcast taping there a few weeks ago. We're going to be back in March to cover the Harris County Democratic convention there, which we're the party convention there for the county. We're really, really excited about that. We're working on San Antonio. We've been down there and doing fun stuff with Ron Nierenberg a couple of times. And what we're missing is Cowtown. I need me some Fort Worth.
Yes.
in our schedule. So we're coming there too.
Love it.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you, Kathleen and Chris. We will see our listeners next week, and we'll say God bless Texas.
You can follow us on all socials at Mission Texas Podcast. Email us at missiontexaspodcast@gmail.com. This episode is edited by Juan Jose Flores. Our music bumper is by Adam Pickerel, and our cover art is by Tina Sohn.